Hi, and welcome to coterminal and reference angles. Coterminal is the first one we're going to talk about. So coterminal, like your co-worker. So kind of think of how it goes together. And coterminal angles are simply angles who share the same initial side and terminal side. For instance, if I had an angle that's, here's the initial side, say it started here at 0, and then say it ended here. So here's the initial side, and here's the terminal side. So coterminal angles, I also kind of think of it as they terminate in the same place. So a coterminal angle would actually end in the same place. So how would you get back around to this angle? Well, you could do one of two things. You could keep rotating around again until you land here. So how far around did we have to go to get there? Well, we just made a circle, didn't we? And how many degrees are in a circle? 360 or 2 pi. So all you have to do to get back to an angle is just either add 360 or 2 pi. The cool thing is you can also subtract 360 or 2 pi because angles do not have to go in the same direction. So for instance, if I had this same angle right here that I had before, and instead of going this way to get a coterminal angle, I could also go this way. And so to get that, all you have to do again is take the initial angle and add or subtract 360 or 2 pi. Because remember, to get all the way back around to this angle, you have to go in a complete circle, and there are 360 degrees in a circle. So let's do an example. For instance, we're going to find a positive and negative coterminal angle. So here's our angle right now. The original angle given is negative 7 pi over 6, and that makes sense because if you go around to here and you're counting in pi's over 6, this will be 6 pi over 6. So if you went backward, you'd be negative 6 pi over 6. So if you want a positive and a negative coterminal angle, let's do the positive coterminal angle first. There's a couple things you could do. To get back to it, we're going to have to go all the way around in a circle. So we're going to have to go all the way around. So we are going to have negative 7 pi over 6, and we are going to have to add 2 pi to this. 2 pi. Well, that's like 2 pi over 1. We can't really add that up. We have to make common denominators. But we know since we're over 6, this is 12 pi over 6, correct? So we're really adding, to make common denominators, we're adding negative 7 pi over 6 to 12 pi over 6. And that should give us 5 pi over 6. And let's see if that makes sense. If we start here at this initial side, and end here, we have gone, and we're going in pi over 6's, we've gone 5 pi over 6. Because one more step would be 6 pi over 6. So that is a positive coterminal angle. So we found a positive coterminal angle. Now we want to find a negative coterminal angle. That means we went here, and we want another negative angle, which is a clockwise rotation. So we're going to keep going around backward. So that means we're still going to do 12 pi over 6, but this time we're going to subtract 12 pi over 6. And that will give us negative 19 pi over 6. So there's a positive and a negative coterminal angle. So next we're going to talk about the reference angle. And remember that a reference angle is always a positive acute angle. Acute means less than 90 degrees. That can represent an angle of any measure. Okay, so we know from the screamer that, remember when we're trying to get out of the screamer, we're always trying to get to the ground, right? So our goal is to, no matter where we are sitting on the screamer, so say if we're sitting here, right? So say we're sitting here on the screamer, that's your little seat. Where are we trying to get? We're trying to get to the ground. So the reference angle is this angle right here. It's the angle that you make with the ground. So this is going to be your reference angle. Since we're in negative 7 pi over 6, which is also coterminal with 5 pi over 6, that means that this angle here is actually 1 pi over 6. Remember, this is 6 pi over 6, and you're at 5 pi over, so you've gone 5 pi over 6. So this little angle in here is going to be pi over 6. So what is pi over 6 in degrees? That is 30 degrees, because pi is 180 divided by 6 is 30. So our reference angle here, and I'm going to draw this a little bigger because it's so tiny. So our reference angle here is either pi over 6 or 30 degrees. This is degrees and this is radians. Next, we're going to sketch 13 pi over 6. So that's a big angle. And we do know where 12 pi over 6 is, right? Because 12 pi over 6, if we divide, it is 2 pi. That means we're going to start here on our initial side. We're going to rotate all the way around to 12 pi over 6, and we're going to go 1 pi over 6 more to get to 13 pi over 6. Because it's 12 pi over 6 plus pi over 6 is 13 pi over 6. The next thing we want to do is find our reference angle. Again, what are we always referencing? Referencing the ground. Get to that green ground. So to get down to that green ground, you have to go pi over 6. Or again, we're lucky, 30 degrees.